One. All right, everyone. Hello. It is Dr. Siobhan here with the Made Marriage Show. This is where I get to interview amazing and incredible wives just like you about how they make marriage work, because we all know that great marriages don't just fall in our laps. They don't happen overnight. That great marriages are made. They are intentionally made with some good, hard work. And a lot of that work first starts with our mindset. It starts with the way we think about things, the way we perceive our husband's behaviors and his words. And, I always like to start this broadcast asking the question of everyone, how are you thinking about your marriage? Like, what are the thoughts you have? What are the stories you're telling yourself? And how is that thinking having an impact on the results, the reality, the experiences that you are actually having? So that's just food for thought. I'm so excited for tonight's episode and tonight's guest. And if you are joining us live, I see a few of you are already on. Just say hello so we can know who's there and we can say hello back to you. But how about this? This is 7, right? July the 17th, 2017. And this is the 7th episode of the Made Marriage Show. I think it's no coincidence. This is going to be an incredibly, I don't even like to use the word luck. This is a divine assignment. That's how I like to see my work. And certainly with those beautiful numbers of 7 showcasing today, this is going to be a divine conversation. And I'm so glad for those of you who are able to join us live and for those of you who will catch this on the replay, because it's just as good then as well. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and finally introduce our guest for tonight. I'm going to let her introduce herself rather. So take it away, telling us who you are, what you do, and how you make your marriage work. And hello, Kwanzaa. Hello, Mia. All of those of you who are saying hello to us. It's so great to have you on live. So take it away.
Okay, well, my name is Marlene Wright, and I am a clinical supervisor by day, but I also am a holistic entrepreneur. I have my own company called Nourish, Love, Thrive, so I help women with vitality and vibrancy and just feeling and looking 10 years younger. And I actually am so excited to be on this program this evening, talking to everyone. And some of the fundamental things that I do to make my marriage work, well, my husband and I do to make our marriage work is we compromise a whole lot. We spend a lot of time compromising. We've had a lot of different things happen over the course of the years. So compromise is number one. Not being selfish. So sacrificing on things that sometimes are easy to sacrifice and sometimes things are maybe a little bit more challenging. Laughter. We are silly. We have a good time in our marriage. We're always trying to find the lighter side of a conversation. And not taking things too seriously. Definitely work to resolve issues right away. I try not to go to sleep on an argument. So even if it's uncomfortable, working through the issues and getting to the heart of the matter. That's some of the things we do to make our marriage work.
Well, I feel like we could stop watching this right now. Don't you stop watching it because I'm watching it live. You already kicked us off with some wonderful gems. I hope you all are taking notes, mental notes, written notes, whatever you have to do, because this is a great start to this interview. And I know that we're going to get so much out of what Marlene has to share. So Marlene, I am so curious. Why don't you share with us your love story, how you met your husband, how you guys came to date and become married. We want to get all the juicy details.
Well, I actually met my husband in my college years, very early on in my college years. I at the time I was dating a basketball player and I thought I was hot stuff. I was just a sophomore, dating a basketball player, and the dorms that I lived in, they were, we call open dorms. So people could come and visit you. They were co-ed. And he happened to come by with some other young men at the time. They were just visiting. And he happened to come by my room with all these other guys. And so, they come in, they're like hot stuff, like, hey, y'all, I had a roommate at the time who was swooning over all of them, but I had a boyfriend. So I was like, I'm not really feeling any of them. I'm going to go see my boyfriend. So during that time, I saw him and, we said hello, but nothing evolved just then because I was in a relationship. And later on, he told me that that's one of the things that actually attracted him to me, is because I was very exclusive and wasn't interested. So we became friends over the course of the next few months. And, that quickly developed into, kind of that infatuation stage. Love Jones was out and he would say these poems. He would like recite like parts of Love Jones. I would see him at parties and things, it was the college life. And, fast forward a few more months, we started really, really liking each other and got fond of each other. And I remember we went to the park. It was in April. I do remember that. And we were having a picnic and we had some KFC and probably some soda or something. I don't remember what we were drinking. And I remember like walking by like the river and he was like, ask me out. Like, do you want to be my girlfriend? I was like, yes. So,
Wait, but what was happening with the other boyfriend at this time? Like, where was he?
That was like gone after like a few months.
Like 2 minutes. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, that wasn't a serious boyfriend. But so he asked me out and, after that, things just evolved. And, a couple years later, it was Christmas. And I remember being at his parents' house because we was split. And, everyone was getting gifts, like lots of gifts. And I always like to pass out all the gifts. And I didn't have any gifts. And I was like, where's my present? Thinking to myself. And he comes to me with this one box and it's like a shirt box. And I open it and there's a folder inside with a poem. And basically he had written a beautiful poem. We still actually have it framed in our house. And at the end of the poem, it said, you have given me the guidance to live with God in my life. I need you to be more than just a friend. I need you to be my wife. And he proposed to me on Christmas Day.
Wow.
And so that was like our love story. And then a couple years later, got married. So, yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm definitely having the Love Jones flashback. I mean, that was the movie of our generation. It really was. Marlene, what would you say has surprised you the most about being married? Like good or bad? Like what is really sort of like, I didn't expect that.
You know what? I've heard a lot over the years. You hear there's so many divorces happening. It's really astounding how many marriages just don't last. And one of the things I think that's most surprising about my husband and I is we have experienced a lot of things in our lives, some great and some pretty awful over the course of our marriage. But it's been very surprising that we have like this commitment that we want to stay together. It's like no matter what happens, it's surprising that, it's never a thought or are we going to be together? Are we not going to be together? It's almost kind of like, what is the next step to get through this? Because we already know that we've taken vows and we're going to be together. So it's been surprising that no matter what we faced, that has remained very consistent in our marriage, that we're going to do what it takes to get through it. So I've been surprised seeing, you see your friends and you see things happening and people just give up, but it's never been an option. So I've been blessed with that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's almost like both of you have decided ahead of time that this is working. Like there's no other option. There's no plan B. There's no other way but to be together. So that's incredible. That's amazing. going on that, I'm just going to go out of order than I
Yeah.
normally do. Let's talk about those who may be on the verge of divorce. So I recognize that there's tons of different people that may be watching this show, and they may be in different places in their marriage. What would you say to the person who is sort of like feeling like, divorce is an option, it is on the table, it's an active conversation that I'm having in my mind or that I'm having with my spouse? And of course, we're not talking about situations where there's physical abuse or danger or safety is threatened at all. But what would you say to the woman who feels like, maybe the things she sees in her husband are just not the things she wants anymore, that they've drifted apart, or that he's not paying attention to her, that she just feels like what they have right now is not going to work? What would you say to her?
I actually have had a friend, a very good friend of mine, who has been married for a very long time and kind of was at that crossroad recently. And one of the things that I will say, I know it's not always comfortable, but, I've always come back to this place, and even talking with my pastor and the things that I've faced in my marriage is oftentimes you have to kind of look at yourself, because people don't really change much. Your men don't change much. So what you came into the marriage with, even those little things, you're like, oh, well, he'll change, or, I'll disregard that. People don't change. So if you've made a commitment to be married, and you really do feel in your heart, that you're still in love with this person and you still want to make the effort, then the person to really look at to change is you. Because one of the things that I have found in my own personal relationship, and even with my children or my husband, the moment I start making changes, whatever that is, whether that's prayer, seeking counseling, self-care, all of those things, spending more time with friends, building myself up, it's like an energy comes out, and my husband can recognize that, my children can recognize that. My home is a better home when I work on me. So I would say to that woman, before you consider divorce, do some self-examination and really kind of look at, have you really filtered this all out? Is it really some displacement that's happening? Well, oftentimes when we're not fulfilled in certain areas, we will blame it, on situations. I think self-examination is the first step, honestly, to really consider, have you worked through everything you can before you take that step and move towards a divorce?
Yeah, that is powerful. I don't have anything more to add to that. Kind of along those same lines, when you think about examining yourself and taking that look in the mirror, what would you say for yourself as you think about the relationship you've had with your husband and the time that you all have been married? What would you say are some of the ways that maybe you have grown as a result of being married to him specifically? So I find that, whenever we think about marriage and we think about couples, that I think it's by intent, by God, that he creates and he pairs us with people that are like so opposite of us in particular areas of our lives. And so as you think about the unique person that you are and the unique person that your husband is, how would you say that you have grown as a result of being married to him specifically?
We are opposites. I'm like, hey, my husband is very, conservative, but it works. One of the things that I will say is very early on in our marriage, we were confronted with some pretty serious decisions. A couple years after we got married, we had our first child. Well, I got pregnant. And during that pregnancy, about 6 months into it, he got a phenomenal offer in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is about 4 hours away from where I'm from, which is in Richmond, Virginia. I knew no one. I'm like begging him, please, please, please don't, move. It was just such a huge shift for me, being a new, almost a new mom and new in marriage. But when I tell you compromise, there was something about it, my values and my relationship with the Lord, that said, you have to make this sacrifice right now, and being able to be led. Sometimes that's kind of hard, especially in today's society, because we want to be independent. And I will tell you, for my 9 to 5, I was 6 months away from licensure, which was huge in my field. I work in mental health, but I had to be led and stay home with my daughter for a few years. And I had to kind of start all over with the licensure and build that back up. So it was a part of me that was a little bit resentful in that, because I had my own desires, my own aspirations and things that I wanted to do. But God told me this is the time to be led. And so I did. And it was challenging for me. And then from there, we moved to Charlotte. And then there was an opportunity for me to have a really good job opportunity back home in Richmond. We were able to relocate. But during that period, we were separated for 9 months because he was still there. He didn't have a job. So working through all of that, sacrifice, like I said before, and compromise, not being selfish, not always thinking about putting your desires before the family. I've had to work through that. It's been a huge challenge. And then, 6 years after our first daughter, we wanted to have another child. We struggled with having a baby. Took us a year, and then that baby was lost at 17 weeks. You've been talking about a huge emotional shift, just traumatic for my daughter, my oldest daughter, traumatic for my husband, but we were, it's just working through it. Like I told you, having that desire to stay together and keeping God first in our marriage has been pivotal, regardless of what we've gone through. We've both gone through promotions and job loss, financial issues. Like I said, the death of a child, even the child that my last daughter being on bed rest for 6 months, 3 months in the hospital, I was on bed rest, and him having to be like a single father taking care of our other child. So, God presents, things, they come up, but it's made our marriage so much stronger. It's so much more beautiful. It's almost like the trials and tribulations that it's shaped us, and we're strong. And I feel like that's what's made us so solid. So when I said at the beginning, I mean, literally compromise after compromise and sacrifice after sacrifice has given us the strength. I don't feel like there's anything we can't get through. So
yeah. That, Marlene, I feel like we probably need a whole hour because I have so much I want to ask you now. So there's two things that just from this conversation, this question, that I really want to sort of delve deeply into just a little bit. The first is, how do you keep God first, right? Because I feel like every wedding card you get, every piece of advice you get from people, it's always like, keep God at the center of your marriage, keep God first. And I'm such a tangible, practical person that whenever I hear people that say that they do that, I'm always curious, well, what does that look like? What are the practices that you have? I mean, I know what we do in our own marriage, but what would you share with someone that knows that conceptually, yes, you need to keep God first, but how do you walk it out? How do you live it out in your marriage where you actually do keep God first?
Well, what I will say, when we first got married, my father is a pastor. He's a minister. Mm-hmm. He's been in ministry for over 30 years. But when I first got married to my husband, we're of different denominations. Mm-hmm. So, and he wasn't as into church. I mean, he was very traditional, go on holidays and things like that. I was, big in ministry, tither, and all of these things. So what I would say at the beginning, the early years, my example to him seeing me, in ministry, faithful, tithing, all of those things, it rubbed off on him. I'm telling you, literally, now he is such the biggest giver, tither, but being in ministry together, finding a ministry which we have found that we both enjoy, that satisfied both of our needs, has been pivotal for our marriage, because when things happen, we have a support system with our church family and our pastor that we can go to, and that has been phenomenal. But we did go through this period, and it's so true. Real talk, marriages cycle. So you have lovey-dovey, irritating. Oh my goodness. what it like it's like annoying, and then it's like, oh, lovey dovey dovey. It's like you kind of go through this like thing, no one stays on the highs all the time.
Right,
And we were
right.
in this kind of like, love drought, I would say, where everything else was great. I mean, kids, the house was running, but just intimacy and our connection was kind of like not there. So I was on Facebook and I saw this book called Prayers for My Husband. And then there was one, and I don't remember the author. I will have to get it to you. But it was like Prayers for My Husband and Prayers for My Wife. And I bought it. And I was like, you know what? This is, even though we're praying, maybe specific prayers will kind of help us. And it did amazing for our marriage, because every single day you're not just praying like general prayers. I mean, you're praying for every part of that person, like they're thinking, how they're feeling, their emotions. And it brought us closer together. And he would just text me and be like, day 5 done. And it was just like this closeness, because you're not just looking at this person as, this is my husband, this is your honey-do list, or what have you done for me lately?
Yeah,
you're looking at them like, oh my goodness, this is Sean. This is a individual. I'm not just praying for my husband. I'm praying for this man of God. And it helped us so much. So, finding something that, is, like you said, tangible, like a book, or even if it's devotionals or something like that, or listening to something, getting involved in a marriage ministry. I think those things kind of keep, because you don't know everything. You think you do, but you don't. There's always something that you can learn. I don't care how long you've been married. There's always something else that you can get poured into your marriage. And that's what I did. And it has helped us. And anytime that I'm starting to feel like a little, like, I'll get that book out and it'll just bring me back into remembrance. He is a person too. We're individuals too. And praying for him in that way took us to another place in our intimacy. And I'm not talking just sexual. I'm talking about intimacy as far as connection. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, that spiritual intimacy and having that soul to soul connection supersedes anything that you can ever experience in life. So, getting a little bit of feedback. I hope it's okay in your end. It'll work itself out. Okay, it's good now. It's good now. Thank you for that. So, Prayers for My Husband, Prayers for My Wife. I have heard of that book. We'll try to find maybe the link for it and add it as a comment to this post so people can make sure that they check that out. What would you say, Marlene? So going back to like your younger self, that college Marlene, before he walked into your dorm room, what would you say? I feel like hindsight is 2020, right? So now you've been married, and we'll get to exactly how long in a minute. You've been married now, and you've seen what it really takes to make a marriage work. What advice would you give your single self before getting married, or anyone that's single now before they get married, that might really help them and put them in a better position to having a successful marriage?
If I had to give my younger self advice, is focus on come to the marriage, or come to any relationship whole. Because how they always say, well, you're my better half. That is true in a way, but really, you're kind of, when I think better half, I'm thinking, okay, we meet each other halfway. We kind of support each other, but you don't want to be half of a person coming into a relationship. Whether you're married or not, you really need to work on who you are as an individual, who you are in your career, who you are in Christ, or your spirituality, who you are and what you like. Don't come into a marriage thinking that someone else is going to fulfill things that are incomplete within you. So working that out and really doing that work first, it's like when you come in, then it's so much easier, because you're not looking for parts of yourself in someone else.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And thank you, Jennifer, for putting that link up. And Shavetta is like amening everything you're saying. And I think that's so true. One of the things, I've written a couple of blog posts. Yes, Valerie, you both, how how you both can build each other up. That's really important too. But one of the things I've often said is like, happiness is an inside job that so often we come to marriage and we don't feel fulfilled and when we don't feel happy, we're looking at the other person to give that to us. And again, there's so many areas and aspects within your own self that if you have some voids in your life, your husband is never going to be able to fulfill that. He could give you a compliment every single day, but if you have low self-worth or if you don't feel great about yourself, you can't even receive the love that he's trying to give you. And, I think we look for our husbands to complete us, right? So you remember that Jerry Maguire statement, like, you complete me. Like, we want this romanticized, fantasized image of love and marriage. Yeah. And it doesn't work that way. Like, you need to be a whole and complete person on your own, or you need to work towards filling those voids, those holes, those gaps in your own life, which I believe, and I'm sure you believe too, really only come from the Creator. And like, you need to really search your soul to allow God to fulfill you, so that when you enter the marriage, or when you look at your marriage, then you're looking at it with complete whole eyes and a complete and whole heart. You're adding to and you're able to give to your husband from your overflow, not from a deficit of being needy and needing him to fill a void for you. So thank you for that. That's so powerful. What would you say? You've already talked a little bit about your rituals and healthy practices, really from keeping God first. What would you say nobody tells you about marriage? Like, what would you say is like almost like an insider secret that, like, if people would just talk about this more, like, everybody would be better off? And while you're responding to that question, I'm going to ask our audience, and we've got a good live viewer right now. After this question, Marlene is going to actually tell us how long she's been married. So I want you guys who are watching live to start your guessing, posting in the comments how long you think she's been married. And there's a little bit of a lag time, so start posting those comments now, and we're going to move on with our conversation. And she's just going to share a little bit about those insider secrets, like what are the things you feel like nobody really tells you about marriage, and you have to sort of figure it out, trial and error on your own.
Marriage is like a muscle, okay? If you don't work at it, don't think because you think you're cute or, oh my goodness, I am every woman, or, I can cook good or whatever, that is going to sustain your marriage. You have to work your marriage. That means, and it takes work. And I mean, I didn't know that at first. Like, it was like, some of the things that were coming up, like I was telling you about the cycle, I'm like, well, what's going on? Are we falling out of love? Like, why are we irritated? Or, why do we fight and stuff like that? It takes work. It takes work. And the more you work on it, that means being intimate, communication, finding ways to enjoy each other, dating each other. Like, literally, I'm not talking about Netflix and chill on the couch and go to sleep after the kids or whatever. I'm talking about physically taking the time to take vacations, to take dates, do stuff out of the box. It's like you got to work it. I mean, and it's like that muscle. And the more you work it, the stronger it will be. No one told me that. You get at your bridal shower, everybody's like, love, laugh, and be kind, all of that. But no one tells you, girl, you're going to have to get in there and you're going to have to work. And when it's the hardest, when it feels like the hardest, that's when you work even harder. I think that's one of the things that no one told me. And now I'm like, yeah, I get that. So
you are so on point with that. It's so true. All right. So we've got some good guesses coming in. We've got people guessing 15 years, 5 years, 16 years, 8 years, 10 years. All right. So, Miss Marlene, why don't you tell us how long you have been making your marriage work?
In August 10th, it will be 15 years.
Wow. So Melissa, you got it right. You got it right. Wow. I'm sure people are looking at you like, wait a minute, how is this beautiful, vibrant
Yeah,
young lady, young woman, like married
yeah.
for this long, right? So if you guys are just catching the broadcast, Marlene is like a health and wellness and vitality expert, and she has her own company called Nourish, Love, Thrive. Did I get it right? Did I get the words right?
Yes, you did.
So you can check out all her secrets because her skin is like glowing, and I know she is looking fresh to death, right, Marlene? Okay, so we are almost done. Why don't you just share any parting word of advice, quote, scripture? Like, what do you want to leave our audience with? Those who are watching this live and those who are catching us on the replay. What do you want to leave them with?
Well, the one thing I just want to say is stay encouraged. Nothing is too hard for God. And I'm not just saying that cliche. I'm saying that in a marriage, if you really want to stay with your spouse, you want to be in love, you can. It's not really rocket science. It's not like a really proverbial thing. Really, it is make the decision. If you're making the commitment to be together and stay together, you can get through anything. Stay encouraged. Don't give up. So many people are giving up these days. I'm so hurt. Like I have, multiple couple friends that are going through divorce and separations. And that's not what God intended for marriage. And I believe that if you, like I said before, if you're able to sacrifice, you're able to, keep God in the marriage, working out your marriage like a muscle, just like you go to the gym, working out those issues, making sure you're intimate, making sure that you're connected, you can last forever. It doesn't have to be, any type of stipulation on your marriage. No matter what you're facing, other than, physical abuse and some other, there's some extreme things, of course, we wouldn't want you to follow through with, but, you can make it. You can make it. I mean, we're 15 years in and I'm excited, and I'm looking at forever. So.
Yeah, I love that. I'm looking at forever. That is powerful. Marlene, thank you. I love this. As I said at the beginning of this broadcast, it's the 7th month, 17th day, 2017, and this is our 7th episode. It was absolutely a divine connection here. So divine sharing, divine interview, everything. God's hands is all on this. So thank you so much. Blessings to you and your husband that the next 15 are even better. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this interview process. Thank you for all of you who have joined us live. If you found this fun, valuable, inspiring, encouraging, empowering, share it. Share this broadcast. There's a lot of stuff we share on Facebook that doesn't pour into people's lives the way that this type of stuff does. So it's not about me. It's not about Marlene. It's really about uplifting and encouraging someone who may need to hear exactly what was said today in this interview. So don't keep it to yourself. Share this broadcast because you never know who it might encourage. So thank you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Marlene. And I will be back with you next Monday, same time, same channel, with another incredible and amazing guest. So make sure you tune in then. We are going to say bye-bye for now. Thanks so much, everyone. Okay. Can I end it? It's not ending. Here we go. Bye, everyone.